Today we're going to do a deep dive into different types of structure that we can use when we're songwriting. I have a suspicion that this one's going to be kind of massive, so I've got a cup of tea to get me through, and you might want to do the same. We're going to start by unpacking the different types of sections that we get in songs, and then look at a whole bundle of examples of different organizations of these sections. Just a heads up, before we get stuck into these, there are some expletives in the lyrics of some of these songs we're about to talk about, so I'm not going to say them out loud, but just be warned that if you are sensitive to that sort of thing, there are going to be some rude words in some of these songs. Let's hook into it. So often songs start with an introduction, or an intro for short. As the name suggests, it's an introduction to the song. Often they don't have lyrical content. Sometimes they do. One example I think in this lot does do that. Mostly it's just starting the song and giving us a little bit of musical context to get the ball rolling. Sometimes they can actually also include like melodic motifs that keep coming back later in the song, or rhythmic ideas that again keep coming back. Then we have verses. Verses establish the musical and lyrical context of a song. They carry the bulk of the narrative and introduce different themes and ideas. Typically, a first verse sets up the narrative and introduces ideas, and subsequent verses develop the narrative, elaborating on our understanding of what's happening in the song, musically and lyrically. Then we have a pre-chorus. A pre-chorus sets up a chorus. Now, they specifically build tension and kind of enhance the oomph that we want when we hear a chorus. So a good pre-chorus is going to build tension, have some sort of variation, either lyrically, harmonically, melodically, to the verse, so some sort of change that makes it a distinct section in itself, but its primary function is setting up the chorus, setting that chorus up and making sure that whatever you've got going on in the chorus hits the way you want it to hit. Then we get a chorus. So a chorus carries the main melodic and lyrical hook in a song. Choruses can vary in length. Often what we see are 4-line choruses. They're usually balanced in bars, so an even number, 4, 8, 12, 16. You might even see 10 or 14, I don't know, something like that, but they can also be unbalanced. It is completely up to you what you do with your choruses, but often they're resolved in themselves and we're not left questioning what we've just heard, unlike a pre-chorus, which usually we're left waiting to hear what comes next. Choruses are usually resolved, but not always. Choruses are also usually repeated. Sometimes they can be varied in their repeats, but there's some sort of repeating melodic, lyrical, rhythmic idea in that chorus that makes it a chorus. And that's what makes it a different section, and typically what we remember after listening to a song. You're sitting there seeing the chorus because, in a song with 3 choruses, we've heard it 3 times, and if each of those times we've heard the same melody and the same lyrics, we have the best chance of remembering that coming off even just one listen of a song. Refrains come up in songs without a chorus. So often when people are talking about refrains, we're looking at a verse-refrain structure, which is AABA. And typically in that AABA form, we have at the end of each A section, a repeating line, repeating melody, repeating idea that acts as our refrain, kind of like the equivalent of a chorus. So we're hearing it multiple times again. In that sort of AABA song, we'd be hearing that refrain 3 times. We've got a good chance of remembering it if it's the same lyrics, the same melody, the same rhythm each time. There might be variation in there, or perhaps it's a 2-line pattern and one of the lines changes lyrically but stays static melodically, while the second line is repeated verbatim each time we hear it. It can vary, but basically a refrain functions as that main idea in the song that keeps coming back, but it's not a chorus. And also a chorus isn't a refrain. Let's be clear, they are 2 distinct things. If that's not already clear, when we go through some examples, I think you'll understand it a lot better. Then we have a post-chorus, which comes right after a chorus, as the name suggests, but isn't a chorus itself and isn't a verse either. It's also distinct from a bridge in that it's usually related to the chorus. So that might be that it takes, a repeating line and adds musical variations to it. So, we get like the last line of the chorus. We get a whole section where the last line of the chorus, is still used in the vocals, but we've got different melodic ideas in the instrumentation. We've got a bigger band sound or a quieter, more contemplative sound to it. There's some sort of change in the production, arrangement, melody, harmony, some sort of shift, but it's still in combination with a connection to the chorus. So at what point does a post-chorus become a whole new section in itself? Well, if a section comes after the chorus and feels completely new, totally distinct, and brings new musical, lyrical, textural ideas, then it may be a bridge rather than a post-chorus. Bridges. Now, bridges provide contrast to whatever else we've heard in the song already. So usually we get like a lyrical shift, so a new perspective, a new complexity in the narrative. There's some sort of musical change, so whether it's a complete harmonic shift or something totally different in the vocals. It could also be a production change. Basically, bridges are a spot for a shift or a change in the music and lyrics in a song. Variety, contrast, that's what we expect. We can get instrumental parts in songs, so these will be breaks between the lyrical content, a spot to focus on the music. They could contain melodic ideas played by some of the instruments, or they also might not. They might just be music, chordal accompaniment, just a spot for a little bit of lyrical reprieve. And in that same vein, we can also have solos. So these differ from instrumental sections in that they are a spot for an instrument or instruments to have the spotlight, have the focus put on them, and do something melodically exciting or interesting, whether it's improvised or specifically composed, a spot for them to shine, playing melodies that could be connected to some of the other ideas that we've heard in other spots in the song, but usually have some sort of distinct flavor to pull focus and spotlight that instrument in a distinct and interesting way. And finally, we have outros. So this is the conclusion to the song, right? It can be brief, it can be long, it can have lyrics in there, it can not have lyrics in there. Sometimes songwriters turn these into a whole distinct sections. And in that case, then we get into the realm of at what point does an outro become a fully distinct section? Well, it's kind of up to you, whatever you want to call it. But basically, outros complete the song. Okay. Now we have our building blocks. Let's look at some examples. For the purposes of these analyses, we're going to talk about sections as A, B, C, D, E, that sort of language, just because not all of them have distinct verses, choruses, bridges, or that sort of thing. It's not as neat as that in songwriting sometimes. And I want to show you guys how that works. I will try and make sure that in that analysis, I'm still letting you know when we're seeing a verse or a chorus or a pre-chorus, whatever it is, but we are going to talk about them as A, B, C, D, E, da 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 da. Okay, so first up, we're going to look at songs with just a single section, so an A section. First cab off the rank is Bo Burnham's song Bezos 4. It just has one section. No intro, no outro, just one verse, one section. That's it. That's the entire song. This is pretty uncommon for songs that people put out in general, but more common if you've got a body of work and you have different song forms and different lengths of song in the body of work. So this one, single section, just A. Next up, we have two A sections. I'm going to give you two examples for this one. The Fountains of Wayne song, Yours and Mine, has an intro, two A's, and an outro. Now, our two A sections here do have a refrain that is musically consistent between the two A sections and has the lyrical repeating yours and mine at the end of both refrains. There's also Love, Fame, Tragedy's song Please Don't Murder Me, which is an intro followed by two A sections. And again, we get a refrain at the end of both of those A sections. And they're slightly different because we get a middle line elaborating on the refrain in the second A. Once we get to the point where we've got repeating A sections, we're looking at strophic form. So strophic literally just means A, however many A's there are. If there is more than one A, we're looking at strophic. I'm not going to lie to you, I did not think it was worth my time or your time to sit here and go through 1A section, 2A section, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're skipping a few numbers here. And we're going to Nick Drake and the Bad Seeds song, The Curse of Millhaven, which has an introduction and then 13 A sections. 13! He just keeps going in that song. And again, we do get a refrain. Now again, it's a two-part refrain, and the first part of it isn't lyrical, but it is melodic. So we get Lars in the vocals, followed by a repeating lyrical refrain. And another example of that long form, like just A forever song form, is Mother of Pearl by Brian Ferry. If you listen to the horoscope version, it's 9 minutes of an A section, just repeating A sections. So it's got an intro, A forever, a little instrumental bit, and then it goes into this like long A that sort of acts as an outro. We also have a refrain, but it's not as distinctly at the end of sections as the previous examples that we've seen. And to be completely honest with you, like, this is how I divided the lyrics up. But I think there's quite a few different ways that you could divide the A sections in this song. The key thing to note is that the refrain is the "Oh mother of pearl, I wouldn't trade you for another girl," and that mother of pearl keeps coming back, but often what directly follows it varies. So again, we've got that slight change in the repeating refrains, but we do have that refrain coming back of Mother of Pearl. Brilliant song. If you haven't heard it, you should go listen to it. It's one of those songs that, like, as you're listening to it, you don't realize you've just spent 10 minutes of your life listening to one song. It's just effortless. So good. So good. And the other thing I should say in that, unpacking the A sections in this song, it doesn't follow a distinct harmonic pattern for each, A section parcel, or a melodic pattern for each A section parcel. It's using very similar melodic ideas of this kind of like question and answer melodic movement. And that's usually between couplets in the lyrics. And it uses 3 chords for the entire song, and it just uses those 3 chords the entire time. You don't have any sort of melodic or harmonic tell to let you know when we're changing section, or when an A is concluded and another A starts. We don't have that. And if you divide it up with the Mother of Pearl falling at either the end of an A section or the start of an A section, all the sections are uneven, which is totally fine. But it just meant that it was like, no, actually, I'm not going to worry about trying to be very specific about where those A sections are exactly. I ended up figuring I'll put the Mother of Pearl at the end of each A section and just darn well enjoy the song and be amazed that Brian Ferry could write a piece of music like that. So now we are up to 2 section songs. So an A section and a B section. That A-B form is also known as binary. As soon as you've got repeating sections, so A-B-A, A-B-A-B, it's not traditionally binary anymore. Binary classically refers to a song with A, B, end. That's it. Which I think is important to note, because that is very distinct in comparison to songs that do have A, B, A, B, or often verse, chorus, verse, chorus. So traditional binary songs aren't that common anymore, just like songs with just one A section aren't that common. So we're back to Bo Burnham with Bezos #1. Now, this song has an intro, an A section, a B section, and an outro. Thank you, Bo, for getting wild with your song structures. I really appreciate it. It's very much helped me with this video. Then we also have Prelude, Take Me Back from the musical Dogfight, which has an intro, an A section, a B section, and an outro. Now, this one's a nice example of what you can do with an intro and an outro because it has this melodic idea that's carried by the vocals doing da 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 da, that's introduced in the intro and reprised in the outro. So there's a nice sort of tie-in between the intro and outro there as well. So that's traditional binary. Let's look at a few other song forms we can get by just using two sections again. So we can go AAB. Here's Bo Burnham's song Unpaid Intern with AAB. No intro, no outro, nothing else. Then straight up again, Bo Burnham, we've got AAAB with WTFIGO. Lizzie McAlpine's song Like It Tends to Do changes it up slightly by having an intro, an A section, a B section, and then half of an A section, but instrumental. So it's runs through the chords, but it's the chords that we've already heard in A, and they're quite distinct, so you do notice that connection. And then back to a B section. So it's like A, B, A, B, but just with that variation in the second A. Yeams's song I'll Go Anywhere With You is just a straight A, B, A, B. It does have an intro at the start as well. And back to Lizzie McAlpine, her song Ceilings has an intro and then A, B, A, B, but a second B, just to double up on that chorus. The Beatles song Yesterday has an intro, two A sections, a B section, an A section, a B section, and then finishes back on the A section. And in this one again, A's are verses, B's are choruses. It's the same. It's the way it is for most of these actually. Gautier's song Somebody That I Used to Know has an intro, an A section, a little instrumental part that again reprises the melodies from the intro, then A section, B section, again that little reference back to the intro, and then A section, B section, and an outro, again with the reprise of the intro melodies. Why We Build the Wall, written by Anais Mitchell from the musical Hadestown, is a really interesting version of this because it sort of explores the territory of call and response, which is another variation on AB, where we have a question and an answer. So call, response. And this one's quite distinct because it is literally a question followed by an answer in the lyrics as well. And it's two different groups. So it's Hades asking the question and then the ensemble answering. So that's quite interesting as well. It's a very explicit example of that call and response, A section, B section. And what's interesting about this one as well is that, so we get an intro, it's a fairly long intro in that one actually, then A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, a brief instrumental little pocket, and then A, and sort of like an elongated B variation to finish it off and conclude the song, so it acts as an outro as well. And as the song goes on, each B section that we hear gets longer as well. So that's another way that you can use that call and response and create variation in your B sections. Actually, all those B sections end with a refrain as well, which isn't super common for songs with an A section and a B section. Typically, that B section is a chorus. I wouldn't call this B section a chorus, but I would call the final two lines of the B sections a refrain. Next up, we have ternary structure, which you'd think would include a C section, but it doesn't. It's actually A, B, A traditionally. Interestingly, I could actually only find one example of a ternary song from kind of modern songwriting practice. So the song Anchor, again by Yeams, is an intro, an A section with a refrain, a B section, and then back to the A section again with that refrain. I love ternary. It's really nice. Not seeing that often, but really lovely when you do it right. Next up we have AABA, or commonly called verse-refrain structure. Perhaps one of the most famous examples of this, and rightfully so, is God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. We get an intro, two A sections, an instrumental B section. This is the part that has the ba-da-da-da-da-da, all of that over the top of it, but no lyrics. Interestingly, this B section is concluded with a repeat of the refrain that we get after the A sections. So that's quite nice. It's an echo back, a connection to the A sections, but still has variation and contrast compared to the A's that we've already heard. And then of course it's got another A section to finish, and then an outro that sort of uses an outro on that refrain. So the God Only Knows What I'd Be Without You is all through that outro there. This AABA form can be varied like crazy. So the song Un Vento Passao para Paul Simon off Milton Nascimento and Esperanza Spalding's album has an intro, then the AABA structure, followed by another A, B, and then a short A to finish. But what's interesting about this is it's kind of like two AABAs overlapping. So if you consider that middle A as the connecting tissue, we get two AABAs with a shared A in the middle, which I love. It sounds so great. It's such a beautiful song. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. And lovely variation on the AABA form. Next up, songs with 3 distinct sections. We're going back to Bo Burnham to start with. Now, his song content is A, B, C. That's it. So about as short a form as you can get with 3 distinct sections in the song form. So we get an intro, we get an A section, we get a B section, we get a C section, we get an outro. I love this form as well. Short form song. I think there's this real art to a short form song that Bo Burnham nailed in his Inside album. Yeah, fantastic. And that's why there's heaps of examples in this. Next up, we have Lizzie McAlpine's song Staying, which has an A section, a B section, an instrumental B section, a C section, and then an outro. We can also just get a straight repeat of ABC, ABC. Now that, in traditional song form, might be verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus. There aren't that many examples of this sort of thing, actually. Most things have a bridge as well, but this can be really effective too. Bo Burnham's song The Future, I feel, does this quite well with introduction, A, B, C, A, B, C. Now, you could make an argument that what I'm calling a B section here is actually part of the A section. The reason I'm calling it a B section is lyrically both B sections are very similar, and rather than providing the context that the verses are doing, it's setting up the chorus, to me at least. So yeah, ABC, ABC. Back to Lizzie McAlpine. Her song Drunk Running has an intro, A, B, little instrumental pocket, then C, B, outro. So we've got that variation of the C section in there just after the instrumental. Back to Bo Burnham again. His song Look Who's Inside Again has A, B, and then A, B, C. So that is an example of an outro starting to become a distinct section in itself. Why is it a C section rather than an outro? Well, it's introducing new lyrical ideas, which sometimes outros can do, but most of the time they don't. That's not a space for new material, it's a space for concluding, right? Rounding out, resolving, all that sort of stuff. But this one has new lyrical material, musical ideas that we haven't heard before, which also typically doesn't happen in an outro, and it's musically different. So I'm calling that a C section. You could call it a C/outro. That would also be fine. That's often what I do with this sort of stuff, because that way it shows that it is a new section, but it still has the underlying purpose of completing the song, even if it's not with a neat conclusion that some outros have. It's still there as the final section of the song. Next up, we've got Yeams's song In Full, which has A, B, A, B, C, B. What I just realized that I haven't been saying is that most of these songs have had choruses and verses in them. Apologies, I forgot to clarify exactly which ones were which as we went through. Hopefully it's been obvious for you, but apologies if it hasn't been super clear. In this song, we have a verse, a chorus, a verse, a chorus, a bridge, and a chorus. This is a really classic song form that we see all the time, everywhere. Take your pick, I'm sure you've heard it many times before, and there's tons of examples, but this is the one that I've gone with. So yep, that verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Fountains of Wayne's song All Kinds of Time has an intro, then A, B, which is a verse, chorus, then C, our bridge, this sort of instrumental kind of pocket with a guitar solo in it, back to A, and then an outro on B, the chorus. So that's just putting another verse-chorus combo after a bridge, which can be a nice variation. Love Fame Tragedy's song Riding a Wave has an intro followed by A, B, C, and then D, that's where we get the bridge, which is kind of a variation on C. You could probably call that a C1 as a variation of that, but the reason I'm calling it a distinct D section is because production-wise, even though lyrically it's not super different, it's a variation on the one-line chorus that we get. Production-wise, it's completely different. It's a real shift in energy and has that sort of contrast that we would expect from a bridge in the arrangement and the music, even though we don't necessarily have that in the lyrics. And this one again has an outro that's the same as the intro. So we do get that quite a bit, outros and intros that reference each other. So now we are up to 4 or more sections. So we're starting again with Bo Burnham. Now this song is intro, A section, B section, C section, D section. This intro is lyrical, but I'm calling it an intro because it doesn't feel like an A section. It doesn't feel like a verse or a distinct section in itself. It doesn't repeat anywhere. It's an introduction to the song. So that's why it's an intro, even though it has lyrics in it. It's not just musical. When we have a song that's written like this with multiple distinct sections that don't repeat, it's traditionally called through composed. We don't get to see it that often, again, in modern songwriting practice, but it's great. When it's done well, it's a fantastic form and can be a real compositional challenge if you're looking to test your songwriting skills. Write a through composed song. Next up, we have Billie Eilish's song Birds of a Feather, which has A section, B section, C section, D section. So that section, we're kind of sitting there going, oh, through composed. But then we go back to the A. Now the fun thing that happens here is the C section and B section are swapped. So rather than hearing again A, B, C, D, we hear A, C, B, D, and then the outro. A really nice way to have variation by just swapping 2 sections there. Lin-Manuel Miranda's song We Don't Talk About Bruno is a fantastic example of modern use of rondo form, which is where we have a repeating A section, but it's interspersed with different sections each time. So A, B, A, C, A, D, A, E, and on and on and on and on and on for however many sections you've got. Now this one has an A section with our refrain. Then we get a B section, back to another A section, to a C section, back to another A section, to a D section, back to another A section, but this one is varied. So slightly different lyrics, it's a little bit longer, and it's not a straight repeat of our refrain. It's an elaboration on that. And then we go into an E section, which is interesting because it's actually made up of references to all of the other sections that we've heard before. I'm calling it an E, but I'd probably call it, in a formal analysis, I'd probably call it an E with reprises, and then clarify the reprises. So which references come from which sections and label those deliberately. And then we finish back on the A section. This one's great because each B, C, D, E section is very distinct. They have different voices singing in them, different perspectives. They're different lengths with different melodies. What a great way of adapting rondo form to modern songwriting. Just a couple more examples of different ways to put 4 sections all together before we finish up is Caroline Polachek's song So Hot You're Hurting My Feelings. We get an intro, an A section, B section, C section, A section, B section, C section. Now that's our verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge or D section, and then pre-chorus, chorus, B, C to finish up, which is a variation I love. I love getting a pre-chorus, chorus combination after the bridge. Her other song, Billions, is another example of how you can expand on an AABA form by including new sections. So this one goes intro, AABA, and then C, A, B, and then back to C as an outro. Esperanza Spalding's song Precious uses an intro, an A section, a B section, or a verse chorus, a little instrumental pocket that calls back to the intro again, an A section, a B section, so that's our second verse and second chorus there, followed by a C section, which I would call a post-chorus, a D section, which is our bridge, a solo, and then B section, C section, chorus, chorus, post-chorus, and then an outro, again with a reprise of our introduction ideas. And for our last example, we're going back to Hadestown with Anais Mitchell and her song Wait For Me. Such a good song. So it goes A section, B section, A section, B section, C section, D section, A section, B section, E section, and then outro. Now, what's again interesting about this one is that they're sung by different people. So the A sections are sung by the Hermes character. The B sections are sung by Orpheus. The C section is sung by the Fates. The D section is Orpheus, but a completely different melody to the C sections we've already heard him sing. And it's actually a reference to other songs that we have already heard in the musical. So it's a reference to other content from the same body of work, which is lovely as well. And then we go back to a B section with Orpheus again, and an E section, which is like an elaboration on the lyrical idea from Orpheus's B section, but musically it's completely different. So that's why we're calling it a new section entirely. Now, all of these ideas in this song come back in other songs further down the track, in that body of work. But in this song, I think it's beautiful. I love the development in it, and I love how the ideas tie into each other. So that is our deep dive into structure and different examples of songs that use structure in different ways. Basically, what I wanted to do in this video is show you that you don't have to be put into a specific structure box. You don't have to do something just because that's the norm. You don't have to do verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. If you want to do that, totally fine. I will not yuck or yum, but there's so many ways to create variety in structure as long as your songs make sense and have coherent musical and lyrical ideas. You can make structure work for you in a really interesting and unexpected way. Which I love. I think that's so cool. What a great thing to be able to do and have variety in your songwriting practice. It's also really cool to listen out for and go, oh, I wasn't expecting that section to come next. I would love to see some more examples. If you have got any songs that you love the structure in, let me know. I am such a nerd for structure. Song structure is so cool. You can do so much with it and really change the whole layout of your song by using perhaps an unconventional structure. I hope that's all made sense. Let me know if you've got any other questions, and I'll catch you in the next one.